So, hi, I'm Andrea, and I'm an artist, and I direct games and I write. In 2021, I released a narrative platformer called Journey of the Broken Circle, and it's an existential game about finding and trusting in yourself. And the game only features shapes, so the main character is a circle that's missing a piece, and then it can merge with the other pieces, and it'll give it special abilities. For example, there's a sticky piece. With the sticky piece, it can climb ice, and we wanted to create kind of this metaphorical universe, so it would be easy for the player to mirror themselves in it. And so the journey of making Journey of the Broken Circle was very, very long. It was 7 years. And our production was sort of like on off because we often ran out of funding. It was our first major game, and we had to do freelance work in between to make money to keep going. But at the time, we were working hard to get like games accepted as an artistic medium. So when Journey of the Broken Circle got on the front cover of a major Danish newspapers like cultural section, it was pretty huge for us, because not because we expected to sell many copies, because we got like in a paper newspaper, but more because it meant we were closer to having like games accepted as art. And for those who don't read Danish, the title says art is sneaking into the gaming world, and now a new Danish indie game is on its way forward. So Journey of the Broken Circle is a beautiful and minimalistic universe where gameplay is combined with a deep story that throws the main character into a self-discovering journey. And the main character, the Broken Circle, sets out on this existential journey to look for something to complete it, like to make it perfectly round. And by overcoming obstacles, meeting pieces with different personalities, and discovering new places, the circle grows and develops as a character, and it learns about the world and itself, and we along with it. And I guess the game is easy to relate to because we're all on one level or another. We're looking for something to complete us, whether like a partner or a new job or, yeah. So this is the trailer for the game. Oh, and my sound is not connected. Can somebody help? Can you hear it? Yeah, it's okay. It is? Yeah, good. So it won quite a thank you. It won quite a few awards, which was of course like amazing when you worked so long on something. And for me personally, it gave me some self-confidence to go on and make my next game. And in this talk, I will kind of go over the journey it was to make Journey of the Broken Circle, because I imagine, like, I guess I know a lot of people here have a dream to create their own game, so they're already doing that on that journey. And maybe like people also dream of starting their own studio and yeah, go on like that. So here are some quotes from people and from people that played the game. And it's like when you make a game and somebody writes to you that the game made them cry, it's like a pretty big thing, because it's like you're just sitting like kind of alone with your thing, and then suddenly it's out in the world. So it's really nice to get that kind of feedback. So I guess the purpose of this talk is also like the way I make game is more as an artist. So it's also like, how do you balance, your economic situation and making money while being an artist and doing games, which is not always easy. You also need to survive. So a little bit about me, like my background. This is slightly younger me. It's before art and it's before games even. And so I randomly fell into writing for advertising because a friend wanted to get into advertising. And then I sort of ended up working for 10 years as a copywriter in the US, in the Netherlands, and in Denmark. And back then I was very much like, nothing could stop me. And I was like ready to take over the world, but then I suddenly just had enough. I was basically what am I actually doing? I'm selling stupid products to people that do not even need. That was and then I was kind of, screw this. I'll travel back to Copenhagen, and then I did a diploma at the IT University of Copenhagen, which is basically kind of a 1-year study. And I slowly realized that I kind of wanted to express myself through digital works, and in particular games. So at that time, right when I did that and when I finished, the Copenhagen indie game scene was buzzing, and I met a bunch of cool people, and I became part of something called the Copenhagen Game Collective. And that's a non-profit game collective based in Copenhagen. And it's a network of people and companies that are interested in independent game culture. And we believe that creativity breeds creativity. And many cool projects and companies have come out of this. And for me, not to mention a great network that helps and open doors in general. So I can highly recommend to band together with like-minded people from your studies or from the industry. So in the Copenhagen Game Collective and that scene, I also met Patrick, who I later formed the company with that was called The Lovable Hat Cult, and which is the company that made Journey of the Broken Circle. And we also made other different works together, but we're no longer business partners, but still really good friends. So I used to go to a lot of game jams and conferences, and at one of them I heard this talk from this quite successful Danish game company about their creative process. And they quite proudly said that they started, the way they started, they would look at all the mobile games out there, and then they would see if there was one in particular that was popular and almost had no competitors. And so then they would just take that same game and make it better. And so I was a bit wait a second, really? It was funny to me because I just left advertising because I didn't want to think about selling products. And then I was ending up in a world where for many, the selling of a product was still the main factor. Yeah. So expressing myself as an artist through games. So I was a bit okay, so that's definitely not what I want to do. So I wanted to, there was not the kind of games I wanted to create. So how do I work differently? My work, the way I work, it starts with research, an idea, and from there technology sort of set the boundaries for what is feasible. And the work often takes its starting point in the physical body. And from there, and from that framework, I deal with themes as gender, feminism, and human nature. And for me, I'm not so interested in looking at technology just for technology's sake, but trying to find out what it can ultimately do or how it can be hacked or modified. I think I'm more interested in seeing how it relates to people and the human condition as it manifests in situations, expressions, and emotions. So either through a more classic narrative or through technology itself. So using platform games to talk about the human quest for fulfillment and the tablet to explore sensuality. So before we release Journey of the Broken Circle, I guess I should put a trigger warning because here there will be some extremely pixelated image of vulvas. So just if anybody has a problem with that, I guess now is the time to leave. Yeah. So before we released Journey of the Broken Circle, we released this game that's called La Petite Mort. And with that, we kind of wanted to normalize female pleasure. And we wanted to make a game that was erotic, yet not pornographic. And so we asked 4 different music composers to compose a track that would mount and sort of end in a climax. And then we filmed 4 women's vulvas, and then we totally pixelated them. And this game makes use of this algorithm that's called cellular autonoma, which is so when one pixel is touched, the pixels around it can feel it, and then they also like so it sort of spreads when you touch, and so obviously made for like touch devices. Yeah. So when first this was a good learning journey for us because we'd never released a game before, and going through that whole process it's also like a whole thing in itself. So at first we passed the review in the App Store where we released it, and we were like, oh wow, like this is great, Apple accepted this type of game, we were like, that's amazing. So then we like kind of wanted to make a tiny update, and then we like passed, then you have to pass through review again. And then unfortunately for us, it was like a French guy reviewing it, and he actually understood what La Petite Mort means. And that was it. There was like no release of the App Store, and which is, I think, quite an accomplishment for a game that's like 20 by 30 pixels. So yeah. Yeah, that's it. So like a bit of a kind of a, I don't know if I'll call it a sidetrack, but something I've also been doing, like besides like actually making games, it's I've done some more activist work, and like when I started out making games, so when I got into that world, for me, I quickly realized how one-sided I found it, and I felt that there was little focus on other human emotions than violence. So I decided to do something like the way that I could to change that, and also with Patrick to do our part to having game scenes as a cultural medium and an art form. So we made the Lust Summit, and it was a symposium and a game jam that is centering around romance, love, and sex in games. And we held it once a year for 5 years in different Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Norway, and Finland, and then back in Denmark again. And I'll just show you like a video from the event. So another initiative that I also did was something called the Game Go Workshop, and this was kind of this started for me when I went for my first Nordic game conference, which is already a long time ago, but I was like just in total shock because I was basically like the only woman there. I met two other or like even of like different genders. It was like what I could see, it was like wow, you know. So like then I was like, okay, what can we do about this? And then I thought like kind of like a decisive moment in one's life. It's like when you're a teenager, and if you sometimes if you have a success experience in those years, you might think, okay, I might go on and pursue studies in the game studies or go that way. And so I was thinking if I can inspire girls or just some girls to make games, that would be really cool. So, in a Game Go workshop, we inspire girls to have fun with technology and build computer games based on their own stories. And with the Game Go workshop, we were in Palestine, we were in United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and in Denmark and Sweden also. So, yeah, this is from a few years back, the numbers, but I guess it's still unfortunately quite true. And then why does it matter? Because I think the cultural products of tomorrow must be shaped by everyone, as well as we have like films and books and other cultural outlets with a wide range of stories, themes, and protagonists. Of course, the same should be true for games. So even though things have gotten better, for sure, I still think we need to have a much more diverse workforce because then we'll also have more diverse games. And for me, the changes are going too slow. This is Lujain from one of our workshops. We have learned a lot of things. I learned how to make a game on computer, and it was really, really exciting. Maybe at first it was hard, but after repeating and doing the same steps, it turned easy in the end. The most exciting part when you press run and you see the result of your hard work. It's really exciting. Actually, that for the first time, I love that I have accomplished something. Yeah, yeah, I think that I did. I felt that I'm successful. Yeah. Okay, back to Journey of the Broken Circle with a few like sidetracks. So how can you finance like your first game if you want to like go out and make your first game? And even if it's something you would consider more a piece of art and maybe not so commercially viable, it's even harder. Funding. The good thing is that it's actually possible to make art games in the Nordic countries. In Denmark, we have the Danish Film Institute that support games, and yeah, and the first time that we got money, we got like 100,000 Danish kroner. It's like a little bit the same as like Swedish kroner. And it sounds like the greatest amount ever. You're like, oh my God, you know, we'll never struggle to pay rent again. This will take us like, I don't know, like we'll finish the game with this money. But however, you have to be quite realistic with your budgets because you use them up quite quickly. And making professional games is just really hard and expensive. And there's also like a thing about many funds that they only support you with 50 or 60% of your budget. So you need to go out and find the rest of the money from a publisher or from your own funding, like withheld wages for the rest part. So they say that the definition of insanity is applying with the same project at the Danish Film Institute over and over and expecting to get an approval. Because the thing is, you can change your application and apply again. And you see, this is like our applications. And these are, the red ones are the rejections we got, and the green ones are the times we got approval. So basically, we were a bit insane. Like, we just kept applying because we really wanted to finish our game. And we managed to get all the way to the production fund, which is like the last bit of money you can apply for, and that's basically to finish. So, like I said, many funds only cover 50 to 60%. So they expect you to be able to cover the rest. And I guess they do this because they want to sort of mature the companies to make them like think more commercially, which is fine. But it's very difficult if you have a game that's very artsy to convince somebody that it'll make a lot of money in the end. So, of course, it's also possible to not find a publisher, but to self-finance, and which means that basically you just reduce your salary. So let's say you would normally pay yourself 4,000 euros a month. You would just pay yourself half of that. So then you can stretch the production longer. And this is fine if you like, I guess, own the company yourself, but it's a bit unrealistic to do with a full production because at some point you get really tired of not having money for anything and only surviving. And also if you need to work with externals, like hire people in or freelancers, like, I mean, most likely they wouldn't want like only half a salary. You need to pay them full salary. So another way of doing with this funding is to inflate the budget. So you're trying to get this 60% to actually reach 100%. So that would be like your real budget. But a lot of these funding bodies, they have a pretty good understanding of like game production and the scales and the market prices for salaries. So it's a bit of a gamble because you might get a rejection because they'll tell you your budget is unrealistic. So our funding, so for the sake of like full disclosure, and since it's public funding, I can tell you like what we got to produce Journey of the Broken Circle, and it was 135,000 euros, which is like very little. And then we have said like in all their papers for all these applications that we probably put 1 million Danish kroner in through withheld wages. So that's like our own time. But really, like looking at the actual cost of the production and everything that follows, I would say that probably there's somewhere between 25 to 50% on top of that, because we totally underestimated QA, localization, publishing, post-release, and updates and supports. We're just so fixated on getting our game ready. So this is we felt like there was already like always somebody telling us this, but you could do it in your free time. No, we couldn't. It's like a professional game. Come on. Yeah, so really don't underestimate your budgets. So getting into this rabbit hole, thinking about the production we went through, I came up with this highly scientific graph. And creating a game, it's like I just said, it's not just about the development. It's really good to think that there's so much more around it, because in the end, once you like spend so much time making this game, you also really want it to get out in the world, right? Like you really want people to play it. So that's why it's really important to think about the rest too, like marketing, market analysis, publishing, localization, quality assurance support. And then there's also the whole thing of running a company, like HR, administration, taxes, death, which of course is part of everything, right? So I would say be stubborn, believe in your vision, but also be flexible. And so you could like sort of like, sometimes I ask myself, was it worth it? Like to go through this whole craziness? And it's like, yes, because I had so much fun. And I made so many good friends along the way. And I'm really proud of the game that we did. And also because I have my own company, I have a lot of freedom, which is also very nice. And to me, that outweighs the economic insecurity and the doubts and the crunch and the rejections. And I do believe it's a lot about not giving up, but like also about not being super square. Like if you keep your costs low and you don't start out by like hiring a bunch of people that you then have to fire again when you don't have any more money, it's like, yeah, it can work out. And doing your own work, it will be hard. Whether you're starting up your own company with some other people or you're just going out like and doing it on your own. But if you want to go down that road, creating games that are art or art games, I would say like creating something you believe in, it will make like a positive sort of ripple effect in the world. And also like 20 years down the road from now, you will have created something that you can be really proud of, which is really nice. So, so even though I did this insane production that took 7 years, I was like, and where I also managed to like have a baby and move country 3 times, I'm like, ta-da, I think I'll just make another game because that was so easy with the first one. So this is a screenshot from my new game, The Horticulturists. And you play the dramatic storylines of 4 friends in the early 30s, all having like sort of a quarter life crisis. And it's a narrative game about individual perceptions of reality and our relationship with plants. And it's based on my personal experiences and my friends. And the game has mini games that move the story forward, and the mini games reflects the emotions of the characters. And I'll show you some snippets from the game. And just a heads up, there's like another trigger warning. There is like an attempted suicide scene that will be in the first video. See how. Oh, I don't know. Video's not working. I don't know. The video is not working in here. So do you think you could help me? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't connected this presentation to like so this is a video but it's not working. I guess it's when you're let's try to go one down. Oh yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry. So these are the 4 friends. It's Leah, Samson, Ivy, and Lars. And this is Leah on the floor, and Samson, Ivy, and Lars. And they're visiting Ivy in the hospital where she gets brought after this suicide attempt. And of course they're all like pretty devastated because they were wondering, could we have done something differently? Like, could we have seen this coming? So Leah always has to correct people, even in this situation. So as I said, it's an autobiographical game. So it's about me and my friends and my memories. Another way that we advance the narrative is with the texting. So here Ivy's asking if she can crash at Lars's place, which she's done before. It didn't go so well. So he's kind of like, no. And then afterwards, he feels terrible, of course. Yeah, he didn't say yes. So it's also about individual perceptions of reality, because I find it quite like fascinating that you can be in a situation like with a group of friends or with your family or whatever, and then you can like have an intense moment. Maybe there's a discussion, and once you leave, like, and you talk to people afterwards, actually people have understood this like in different ways, like seen it from different perspectives, which is like, but that was not what happened. But the other person have a totally different understanding. So in some like intense situation, you can do a rewind in the game, and then you can play it from a different person's perspective. So now we're seeing Samson, and this what his perspective of what happened, and then you can rewind and go, and then you can pick another character. Then you start out with the same sentence. Then yeah. So the mini games are to move forward. This is also in the hospital. This is the nurse, and the nurse is basically there to keep her from like not harming herself again. And then he finds this sort of hairpin, and he kind of accuses her of wanting to put it in an electric socket and harm herself again. And she's like, she didn't even like think you could like do that. So she's a bit like, what are you talking about? And then there's a mini game, like a stressful mini game, where she has to like find all the hairpins in her room. So yeah, you can move like everything around and like to find the hairpins. And then if you drag them too quickly, they drop. And then there's the stressful element of him like moving towards your room. So yeah, I'm just showing you a bit of the game. The game is also a lot about our relationship with plants. Like they all four of them have this fascination with plants. So I'm using these roots of the plants to kind of show their friendship, how it intertwines and grows. So what sort of interests me in games, like the way I make games, is like normally like you can have like a mechanic in a game, and then throughout the game it becomes more and more challenging, and like you get better at it. That's quite like normally how games are, I would say. But like the way I'm interested in making games is that the sort of the mechanics are proxies for the emotional states of the characters. So if somebody's really stressed out, there will be like a very stressful game. And if somebody is like kind of like thoughtful, it will be like we have a game where it's like you talk to plants. So it's quite like a slow mini game. So yeah, don't burn up and don't give up. It's really easy to get stuck somewhere in the development and feel that you cannot finish and you can't move on, or in the administration of the company. And making games is really hard. It's like huge projects, and it's also making games with heart. It's extra hard. And just take the breaks you need and get back to the project later and be ready to kill a darling if you're very fixated on an idea. But if you don't get the funding and you get really bad feedback from everyone you show it to, maybe it's a good idea to say, okay, let's try something else. And then it's like once you make your first game, it's great, and then be ready for the next one, because most companies like need to like go through the process of making at least one, and then the next one is a lot easier and will probably have more success. And I can confirm that like now on my second game it is easier, because you also know more people, and it's easier to get funding and meet with people. And like if you want to go into like selling your game, I think it's really good to know your target group, to kind of, okay, we know our target group has this specific passion, so we're going to make a game for them, because that's also what we find interesting, because then it's really easy to target them. Like, whereas with Journey of the Broken Circle, we had this idea, oh, this game just speaks to everyone, and maybe it does, but then it's really hard to like make targeted advertising, because it's like, how do you target like everyone? It's like a bit broad. So this is, like I said, we're super lucky in Denmark that we have dedicated fund for games. Unfortunately, I don't think you have that in Sweden, but I think there are still some options. Like, I know people that got money from Kulturbryggan for, like, if they can describe their game as being art. And I know you also have regional funding, I guess, depending on where you register your company. And then you can also apply for Creative Europe. They give you 150,000 euros for a narrative game. But the thing is, you need to have released another narrative game before in the same company. So, but that doesn't have to be a huge game. You can make a small narrative game, release it, and then apply with that. And then you can get the money for the next one. As long as it's in the same company or the same VAT number. And then, like, yeah, I would also say go to like all these like Nordic conferences and like meet up with other people, because often like you can make some sort of co-production, that let's say you meet up with a Danish company, they can apply for funding in their country, you can get some funding here, and you can make the game together. It's never a bad idea, and I know now there are more European like kind of schemes you can be part of too. Finding like a partner in a different country, it might seem like a big step because you're just sitting there with your game like at home, but it can really open some doors and maybe get you the money you need to finish your game or to get going. So yes, that's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, and if you don't feel like asking questions now, you can find me later, like you said quite a few times.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do have some time for questions this session. So happy to, I can moderate them for you, or you can think about it. But the one thing I would just ask for the recording purposes is, since the room may not pick up the questions from the audience, is if you could repeat the questions when they're asked to you.
Sure.
So that then the recording will pick up as well. So questions from the floor. The last game, is it out already?
So the question is the last game coming out soon, or what is the current status? Do you mean Journey of the Broken Circle? No, the Horticulturist is in production. We're just in prototype stage, so we're just beginning. Yeah, so not out yet. No, that would have been great, but no.
What did the sales numbers end up like?
I guess we ended up making like money-wise like 3 million Danish kroner or something like that. Yes, like we saw, Switch was definitely like our biggest platform. And I would say like that's also something I didn't mention in the talk, but like getting a good publisher is like everything, because we had this like very naive idea that we could do everything. Sure, we'll also release it and blah, blah, blah. And then when we got talking with a publisher that actually knew how to market and how to make offers and do everything, like our sales numbers just went up a lot.
More questions, comments, going once. Sure. Yeah, so it's cross games out of not all day and
So the question is that now the first game is out and we have a publisher. If there's something that we as developers still need to do to keep the game going? I guess that's a question. So our publisher that we found, it was very hard for us to find a publisher because it was like people were a bit like, who's the target group for this game, and like how much are you going to sell, you know? And so basically we found a publisher quite towards the end of production, and that publisher was like, okay, I don't know about Steam, I'll just do Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo Switch basically. So on Steam we still have a lot to do because then we self-published on Steam, and it's just like after a while you get really tired of keeping up and doing stuff and making promotions. So our publisher is still doing all the other things, and sometimes he just sends us stuff and like, is this okay? And we're like, yeah, sure, as long as like we're still making some money, great, you know. So with that side, no, we don't have to do anything, but like if you self-publish on some platforms, obviously you have to do a lot and keep doing it. Yeah. How we managed to get, say it again, sorry. Sorry, don't. Talents. How we manage? Sorry. Yeah. How do we manage to get talents? Like how do we like get like work with people? That's yeah. Sure, that's a good question. Like I did the previous game with Patrick, and Patrick is a developer, so he was like coding the game, and I was writing the game and also producing it. So then we had a very specific style in mind that we wanted for the game, and then we just like looked out there who of graphic artists actually had that style that we liked, and then it was somebody we knew from before because we've gone to a lot of game jams and conferences, and we were like, let's ask her and hope she wants to do it. And then she was like, yeah, sure. So I think it's a lot about the network you make while you study, and if you manage to go to some of these events, you also get a feeling for people, because it's not always like, even though maybe the person might have the exact skills that you want, you might be a very bad combination work-wise, you know, that you just can't communicate, and then it's not going to be a great process. So especially when you're a small team like we are, that's also really important.
Time for one more question. There is one, but always you can find them on the show floor or anywhere else the next day or two.
Yeah, I'll be here.
All right. Well, if there's no one else, then thank you one more time.
Thank you.